So the stage I'm at now is I'm trying to put in a whole load of improvements based on the feedback that we got from the last test we did while I was out in Seattle. And we fixed a load of technical stuff really quickly there. Then I kind of read all the feedback and I made some notes and stuff, had some ideas, and then I went away and did the tutorial, which was totally separate, and it was actually based on feedback a little bit, but I already had an idea of what that would be before the test, and it evolved a little bit, but not that much. And it was kind of intentional to do something, to take some time on something that isn't just a matter of reacting to the feedback, so that when I do react to the feedback, I've had some time to like sit on those ideas, all the things that you read the feedback and you think, oh, maybe I could solve that this way, maybe I could solve that this way, and maybe I could solve that way, and you write those things down. And there's just going to be a whole load of little like subtle problems with those ideas that will fall away with time. You just kind of forget the complexity that's in your head when you had that idea, and if that means you can't remember how to solve it, that means the idea was too complex. And if what remains in your memory does solve the problem, now you've got a simpler solution. That's how it works. I just use amnesia as a filter for all my design ideas. There's also, like, as time passes, you'll just suddenly think, oh, hang on, we could just do this in a way simpler way. Or you'll look at the list again and realise, oh, these top 3 things seem really important, but actually these bottom 2 do not, or they won't be in that order. The top 2 will be unimportant, and the next 3 will seem really good. You'll also have a clear idea of like how easy things are, so that's what I'm doing. I'm coming back to that list, and sure enough, like I had for making loot, sort of making high-level loot more interesting, I had 2 different ideas, both of which felt like a big chunk of work and were complex and awkward. And now that I come back to it, I realise, actually, if I just do like the most, there's a sort of semi-elegant version of each of these that's not very simple, but it's much simpler. And if I did, neither of them would be enough by itself, but if I did both of them, then like these 2 simple ideas I think would add a lot, versus like doing either one of those in a really complex and full-featured way would be hard work and I think less benefit. So stuff like that. And the areas I'm trying to improve are, the biggest one is kind of mission variety. In the feedback it was sort of just variety in general, but missions are kind of what I want you to be doing most of the time. And this is a very solvable problem, it's a very fertile ground for solutions, because it's not easy to see where the problem is coming from. There are easy, medium, hard missions, then there's audacious and mistake, the kind of ultra hard ones. And for each one of those difficulty levels, the game just has a set of variables. So if it's easy, it'll be small, and the guards have no special equipment, and the alarm time is really long, and something else. And then for like hard, it'll be a big ship, and they have some good defenses, and they have turrets, and they have this. And so one problem is there aren't enough variables that I can stack them in different ways. So when you have a hard ship, I'm more, like, certainly for audacious mistake, I just have to give you everything. Like, this is going to be armour, and there's going to be shields, and there's going to be turrets, because armour, shield, and turrets are the 3 main things I have that I can add, and in order for it to be difficult enough, I need all of them. So task number 1, just add a bunch more different kinds of obstacles, different kinds of hazards. Really, they pretty much all boil down to like equipment the guards can have that makes your life harder. You can add hazards that are not guards, but ultimately the thing I learned this with Gunpoint, and I see it again and again with Heat Signature, is like combat is just the core, or people are the core. And if you're going to avoid them, then avoiding the people is the core. And if you're going to attack them, then attacking them is the core. But if you add some extra thing, like I added security cameras once, and they're just dead weight, basically. Like, yes, you had to avoid that thing and then just turn it off, but it just kind of, it's not that interesting. There's nothing else. They're not richly interactive, whereas people just are. There's loads of things that can go on with people. There's AI. And yeah, you can make robots and stuff, but it's like, if you want something that's as rich and complex as people to deal with, you are going to have to invent that from scratch, virtually, or make something like, that's essentially just a person reskinned. So either way, it's not that interesting. So really I concentrate on making people more interesting, and I've actually already done that. I've added like 6 or 7 new types of kind of equipment the guard can have that's hazardous in a different way, that's difficult to deal with in a different way, whereas previously there was only really 2. So that's cool. But then the other thing that was wrong with that system really was that it is grouping all the variables together. So when it's easy, all those different metrics in which your mission could be hard are on their easier setting, and then when it's medium, they're all on their medium setting, and so they all go together. Like if there are armored guards, then it's a big ship as well. And there's never a small ship with armored guards, and there's never a big ship with no armored guards or with no with guard with very light equipment. And you never get a big ship with a long alarm response time. It's always a short alarm response time, because that's harder, and so it's a big ship, and so those two things go together. So my next job is kind of figuring out how to, I've been sort of calling it decoupling, decouple those things from each other. So you don't have to be a big ship to have armoured guards, and you don't have to, those things just don't go together. So you could have a small ship with very high security. You could have a big ship with very low security. Very importantly, I want to make sure there are ships with difficult challenges, like they're big and they've got tough guards and stuff, but there's no alarm. Even if you fuck up and set off the alarm, you've got as long as you like to deal with it. So like, I'm just calling it no alarm. Basically, the guards won't trigger an alarm, because an alarm is a countdown, and the countdown means they're flying to the nearest station. So we're going to say something like it's a kind of deniable ops type mission they're on, and so they can't return to a station even if they have an intruder aboard. So they'll see you and they'll still yell and they'll alert their friends and stuff, but there won't be a countdown to finish your mission. You've got as long as you like still. And that's a response to feedback from lots of people, but particularly my friend Brendan had very much that problem where like the time limit was just fucking him every single time, and he couldn't kind of get to grips with the game because he just always set off a time limit, and the time limit was always so short that it felt so short that he would panic and screw up and not get to learn the game very well. So I want to have hard missions that don't necessarily have a tight time limit if you screw up the stealth aspect. I think that's actually really easy. It was really easy to mix up alarms, heat sensors, ship size to some extent. But what I'm working on now is I've just made all those different guard kit types, and now I want to combine those in a random way that avoids the coupling problem. So it's not like, if they have heavy armour, they also have shotguns, and they also have a way of teleporting out of danger. It should be like, sometimes they've just got shotguns, sometimes they've just got armour. On the very hardest missions, yes, they've got multiple of those things, but it's still not like everything comes at once. It's more like pick and choose a few little things. I'm trying that. It's tricky so far. That's one of those things that sounds good when you say it, and then you try it, and you're like, oh, now an easy ship has shielded guards. And that's just not easy. That's, no matter how small your ship is, if you've got to get past an armoured guard, that's really, really difficult. And so you can ramp up the way I'm doing it is I'm giving each ship like a number of difficulty points, and then the generator spends those difficulty points on the different things that are hard. Right now it's only spending them on guard equipment, all the rest is kind of fixed. And so it has like 12 difficulty points, and it costs it 6 difficulty points to give one type of guard shields. And we have 3 different types of guards, and then it will, seed those throughout the ship. So yeah, you can say like, okay, we shouldn't be a shield on an easy ship, so, medium, let's say medium. Easy ship, it's easy because you literally give it 0 difficulty points, then it doesn't put anything on there. And easy ships will be samey, but I think that's not part of the solution. Making easy ships varied is not that important, because really no one should be stuck on the easy ships. Everyone should be able to get to medium ships at least. So medium ships, we've got something to play with. We can give you some hazards, and if I make one type of guard shielded on that, it's a bit brutal. And so I can just change the difficulty points cost of shield so that the generator can't pick it when it has the budget that I give it for medium ships. But then I can do that. But then it picking shields kind of precludes it from having anything else interesting. And I guess it's just a matter of shuffling the numbers around until it does make sense. But it's basically, so it's got to spend its difficulty points budget. And so let's say like right now shields cost 6, and giving enemies guns instead of melee weapons is 1, and giving them shotguns is 2. Shotguns are much harder to dodge in heat signature because there's lots of bullets. And so if I say, okay, medium is 5 points, now I can never pick shields. I can't afford shields even for one type of guard. it will end up picking guns, or end up picking shotguns, and explode on death, and another thing. Like, all the other things are so much less dangerous than shields that it would end up just picking all of them to fill that quota. It can't pick the shields, and so it just has to spend those points on everything, and then you get kind of a sameness problem anyway. So I guess maybe what I need to do is vary... That's tricky. I was going to say vary the number of difficulty points that the mission spends on its crew. So it could spend some difficulty points having a short alarm time, and then it wouldn't have any left to make the crew very difficult, and then it would be balanced in that way. Problem with that is, okay, well then if it doesn't spend any points on the ship difficulty, it has enough points left over to get shielded guards or armoured guards. Shielded and armoured are the two... there's kind of three now. There's shield, armoured, and death glitch. Shield reflects all damage. The only way you can hurt someone who's shielded is to take down their shield with like some kind of electronic hacking type thingy, or you could flush them into space and then they'll suffocate. So it requires specialist equipment. Armour also requires special equipment, but a different kind. You need armour piercing or explosives. Actually, explosives work on both. And so those are kind of they're quite hard and fast. If you don't have the equipment to get past them, you just kind of can't deal with them. And so that's intentional. It's supposed to be, because if it's skill-based, then there's nothing really stopping a completely new player just taking on the hardest possible mission, getting such a huge reward from that they can immediately complete their personal mission, and then they just sort of break the economy. There needs to be a little bit of hard gating, basically, where if you don't have the right equipment, you should not take this mission on, regardless of who you are. I don't care how good you are at games, you just can't do an audacious mission with no kit. Or, I say that, really, you can. You're just going to have to be extremely clever about it, and skillful, and everything else. It's going to be such an absurd task to find, devious ways around things that you don't have the right tools for, and improvise and stuff. And that's what I want, is theoretically it's possible, but no one's really going to do it, or if they do it would be it's never going to be something could do reliably. Like, the luckiest and best and most prepared and cleverest person will be able to pull it off on a good day, but they won't sort of rely on that as a strategy. Whereas if it was, something like that just relied on reactions or aiming, judgment, then for a certain kind of player it's just going to be easy. They're just going to find that trivial, and the difficulty per player will just be wildly out of whack. So it says this is an audacious mission, but because this person's really skilled, they actually don't find it audacious, they find it incredibly easy. And this other person, even on the medium setting, will find it absurdly hard because they're not good at that stuff. As much as possible I want to flatten that out and make it much more about your decision making and how you apply your equipment, and also just what equipment you have. To some extent it is a game where you build up a set of equipment and you are better when you have that equipment, and that enables you to take on harder missions. That's kind of the arc of it. So I'm justifying why shields and armour are in there, but because they are hard obstacles like that, it doesn't really make sense to ever put them on a medium mission. So the other thing I could do is I could just hard restrict it. I'd just say, armour and shields can't appear on medium. They're only on hard and above. And I think what I'm seeing, I've just done some tests, I'll need to do more tests, it's too early to judge the system I've made, but what I'm seeing is just sort of too big a variance in how those difficulty points equate to how hard the ship ends up being. Like, on paper it's easy to say a shield is 6 points of difficulty, and if you're giving shields to the kind of guards who have the keycards on them, i.e. the player will have to deal with them, then you multiply how many difficulty points it costs, and so it's like 18. Now only the hardest missions can pick that. And then in practice you do that, and there are just little things like how many of those types of guards it happens to spawn is a little bit random, and so it doesn't happen to spawn many of them, then you're fine. And if it's I don't know, there are just lots of little variables that can affect their placement, where they are in the modules, that kind of thing. Like, let's say we've given shields to the guards who don't have keycards. Now it matters hugely how close are the keycard guards to those people, and there are lots of just factors that go into how hard the mission ends up being. And I think those were disguised a bit before by how sort of universal the difficulty settings were. It was just like, if it's hard, then there's shielded guards and there's turrets and there's everything else. And yes, the difficulty varies a little bit between those modules, but because it's always that set of stuff, it's always hard. And I was able to pretty easily ensure that the difficulty rating matched the content. When you're mixing these difficulty types, it is harder to actually give a real judgment on how difficult that mission is. It doesn't really matter if there's a bit of variance. It just needs to, like, it's fine if you take on a mission that says it was going to be hard, you find it a bit easier than that, and you still get, that's fine. The slightly trickier thing is you'll be paid as if it was very difficult, and so that's a bit of an unbalance. But even that's not that important. It's kind of nice to like think, oh wow, I just got through that really easy and I got paid loads, great. Obviously the other way around is worse, where it says it's easy and then it turns out to be hard, so we will have to have kid gloves on for easy and medium. We'll just make sure that they can't be hard. And then the time when it's not okay is when it just stops making sense, when you're just like, why was that rated hard? Like, that just seemed way easier than this other one that's medium, and now I don't trust the difficulty system, and now I don't know how to make decisions about which mission I take. That would be a pretty extreme failure case. I'd have to really fuck it up to do that. So I think maybe it's a case of like, this randomness I've got is good, but it's too wild right now. It's too hard to factor in how... That's the other thing, is like, these kit types, some of them are worse in combination. Like if... so the Death Glitch one, I don't think I explained that before, is one I've just added, where if the guard sees you attack, they will teleport out of the way, and they don't actually try to guess whether you're going to hit them. They don't actually try and pay attention to what item you're using. They just see you use something and they're just like, pop, get out of the way. And so if you're trying to shoot them, it's kind of... I thought it would be annoying, but actually I find it really fun. Like, you swing at them with a wrench and they're just not there. They're just like in another room, and then you kind of run around and try and hit them again, and they vanish again. It's not at all frustrating. It is frustrating to shoot a shield guy, actually. I think Death Glitch is a much better type of defense, a much more fun kind of defense to deal with. And there's the extra thing of like, this one is a little bit... you can defeat it with cunning. It's not hard and fast, so you don't need to buy a tool to disable their Death Glitch. What you need to do is surprise them. You need to be behind them. If they don't see you attack, then they can't glitch out of the way because they don't know what's happening. And that's really fun. But that, if you combine that with the Shell Shield. The Shell Shield's a new thing I've added where it's like a shield, exactly like a shield, except that as soon as you hit it with anything, it's broken. So it protects them from one hit, basically. It's like them having one hit point, which, other than that, no one has any hit points. And if they have Death Glitch and that, now you've got to ambush them twice. And I think that's probably more than twice as hard because, for one thing, you can now... It's very difficult to take that guy out before he's going to sound the alarm, because the first hit is going to alert him to that. And with a normal guard, there are certain weapons and certain combinations where you can just have, like, you've got a wrench and a gun, you can run in, smack him with a wrench, then shoot him in the head. And that's 2 hits, he's down. If your gun was silent and no one else is around, you've done it without setting off the alarm. If he has Death Glitch, your first wrench hit, if he sees it coming, then he will glitch out of the way, and now he's going to sound the alarm and you've got to chase him down and... okay, actually, sorry. If he's not looking at you, which is the good thing to do, is the way to get around Death Glitch, you surprise him, but he's got the Shell Shield, so you don't take him out with that blow. So now he sees you, he's alerted, and he's still got Death Glitch, so now when you try and do the follow-up attack, he dodges that, and now he's going to sound the alarm. So that's more than the sum of its parts. Like, those two things combine in a bad way. And I just don't think I can write down all the ways these things combine, because that's just a second-order combination. Like, what about the third-order combinations? What happens when you mix that with then also having armor? They can't have a Shell Shield and a regular shield. I mean, I could allow that, but it wouldn't be interesting, because the same things get through both. But they could have a Shell Shield and armor and Death Glitch, and I don't even know what the complications are with that. And I think it's too much to account for. I can't really just write down a list of all that things. So there's going to be some variance there. I could rein it in by saying on a medium mission, or let's say on a hard mission, all 3 guard types get 1 trait each, and the value of that can be variable, but they don't get more than 1. then that limits combinations. I think I might do that actually, because that feels like where the variance comes from. So like right now, sometimes it's giving guard A nothing, and guard B like shell shields and shotguns and something else, and that costs it the same number of difficulty points as giving half of those traits to one type and half to the other type, but it's worse for you. Well, actually, no, it's not necessarily. It's going to completely depend on the distribution of those guards. It might be that the critical path only involves type A and they have no defences. So I think I'm talking myself into having a set number of traits per guard, or at least a range, like they can have one or two, and ensuring that the kind of money gets spent, the difficulty money gets spent on those kind of evenly. And then at the highest levels, there will still be those combination problems, but at that point you've taken it on. In fact, I kind of want a decent amount of variance in how hard an audacious mission is, because I want, for whatever the minimum difficulty is, I want that to be high, and then from there, I want that to also be, if you're able to do that reliably, I would like you to still sometimes take on an audacious mission and be like, oh shit, this is a bad combination. It's the life of a person who breaks into spaceships for a living is not meant to be predictable, even with difficulty ratings. Okay, so I think I just made some progress there. I'm gonna have a go at tackling that. So that is mission variety. There's, I think, one more part of that. So that alarm system thing I haven't put in at all. John Winder has actually just put in the other mission variable I wanted, which is war zones. And so if a mission tells you that war zone is one of its hazards, that means that the ship you're going to board is about to enter hostile territory, and when that happens, it's going to get attacked by other ships. So while you're raiding it, it's in combat. And that becomes chaos very fast, and that's working out really, really well. My first couple of times playing a Warzone mission, both of them went amazingly in different ways. The first one, I set off the alarm and was racing to the cockpit before the alarm ticked down. The alarm tick down is to when it's going to arrive at a station and dock and capture me. With 0 seconds left, I took out the captain, which meant we're at the station, but we don't dock because the captain loses control at the last minute. So we go past the station, but we're also being attacked by another ship. But then the station recognises that ship as an enemy and fires its mega missile launchers at it and starts to wreck it. We're drifting away. I think we'd lost our thrusters at that point. Oh no, we hadn't. We'd lost our turrets. We couldn't shoot back, but the station was shooting for us. And then we flew away, and it chased us. And then I turned around and rammed it, because John has also done big ship collision recently. And I just kind of ripped half the ship off with a huge collision, and it was I got sent into space. I had God mode on, and I surely would have been killed otherwise. And then the next time I played a Warzone mission, I was nowhere near completing my objective when the enemy attacked, so I actually went back to the start, undocked. I think I might have even thrown myself out of a window or something, or blown up a fuel barrel, and got into my ship and flew over to their ship and broke into theirs and tried to basically take out the captain of that ship to stop it attacking my ship, so I could go back and do the objective without a time limit. So that's really fun. And I haven't really thought about it actually, but already it's clear that Warzone and alarms are two variables that could mix and match. We could have a Warzone mission that has no alarm, so you don't have. You can be as loud as you like, but in 15 seconds you're going to be under attack, and that's going to be a whole different set of problems. Whereas, as I've already seen, Warzone plus alarm has its own interesting interplay. So that's really cool. A lot of this stuff that I where Tess has identified a problem, I would sit down and come up with 7 solutions, and 3 of those I would realise, oh, that doesn't really make sense, but I'm still left with 4 different, not even individual features, but whole sets of features that are going to tackle this thing. And so as I make it, I have to keep reminding myself, it's okay to just not do half of this. It's okay to just start this and realise, oh, these... I had a frontal shield idea for guard defences. Like I say, I made 6 or 7 of them. One of them was frontal shield. I thought I got it working, and then I found all these little edge cases and problems with having a shield that only protects you from one direction. And I realised that's just super hard, and I got a bit stressed. And then I thought afterwards, hang on, I've got 6 or 7 of these things. I don't need the extra shield one. Plus, I've already got 2 other kinds of shields. We can probably just ditch this one. Also, Death Glitch is kind of the same thing in a way. Frontal shield what it ultimately boils down to is if they're protected from the front, you've got to surprise them. That's the same thing as Death Glitch. Death Glitch is you just got to surprise them. Death Glitch is a way more interesting mechanic. It's more different from the other ones, and so I just scrapped that one. So yeah, I've got to keep reminding myself all this stuff. This guard variant system, the drawback of giving like one trait to each of the 3 guard types, or 1 or 2 traits, and instead of letting it be pure random, is there's less variance. But actually, that's not a huge problem because we've got all these other variance things. The Warzone thing is a huge deal. Having no alarms is going to be a huge deal. We're tackling this problem from all kinds of different angles, so I don't need the guard kit to bear all of the weight of solving this problem. It's there to add a bit of spice and a bit of just variance. There's no other word for it. Ironically, I have to keep saying the word variance in a really monotonous way. So very. I think we're in good shape for that. It's worth having a load of solutions to this problem because it's a big problem, but I think we do. Then, this is almost variance as well, but right now the way you liberate a station is you hijack 5 ships, and then once you've got 5, you can send all 5 of them against the station, and it captures it for you, liberates it for you, whichever way you want to say it, and you unlock the technology that station has, and now you can buy that in your shops. And that basically works as a progression mechanic. That was the feedback from the test, which is a great relief because I didn't want to have to think up a new one. Except that it really means that you basically might as well hijack every ship you ever board. You should just keep doing that forever. And of course, the easy ones are the easiest to hijack. And a few people said things to the effect of, I just feel like I need to hijack every ship. And hijacking means wiping everyone out. And if you have a mission on that ship, more or less all missions are completed by wiping everyone out. Like if you wiped everyone out, there's no further challenge to doing the mission. And so I'm going to change that, I think, so that only certain ships are sort of eligible for, are usable for liberations. And the way I'm going to do it is to say that those are, I'm going to call them siege ships. And it'll be rare that, 1 in 5 times the ship you're boarding for your mission turns out to be a siege ship. And then we tell you, hey, this is a siege ship. If you clear it out and hijack it, you can use this to liberate a station. And you only need 1 of them. And so this is very experimental. I don't know if I'll do this, but this is what I'm going to try, is rarer ships that are worth hijacking, and just having 1 lets you hijack a station, so they're really valuable. And that way, that's automatically more variance, right? You board a ship, and now whether or not you're going to hijack it depends on, is it a siege ship? If it's not, you still might want to for other reasons, but there's much lower motivation to it. It's only if there's, if it's your mission to do it, obviously, but only if there's like loads of cargo and you've nearly wiped out everyone else anyway, then it might be quicker to sell it by selling the whole ship rather than picking it all up and selling it, that kind of thing. Or maybe you want to use it to attack another ship or something like that. But most of the time you wouldn't hijack, but when you get told it's a siege ship, you would almost always, if you humanly could. There might be missions where, like, sometimes I take on a mission that's way above my pay grade, because it's like an assassination or it's a rescue one, and I think I can sort of cheese it. I can like teleport in there, get past most of the security, do something like just get in, get out, and I really like that. But if I did that and then it told me this is a siege ship, I'd be like, oh shit, I would really like to get this, but that's going to be a pain. And sometimes I think that would spur you to try taking the whole ship, and that might be hilariously disastrous, or it might go great and it would be a great story. Either way, it's good. I have an idea for improving personal missions, but I think I won't, of improving the way you progress towards personal missions, but I'm not going to talk about it until I've tried it, just because it's one of those things that sounds good in theory, and if it doesn't work out in practice, then I'll end up like proclaiming this exciting feature, and then you won't get it and you won't know why. Or I'll tell you why, but you won't believe me. And then the lowest priority of these things is, actually that's pretty low priority, but the item high-level loot, I have an idea of how to improve that and how to make it so that if I play for 3 hours and have a great run, and you play for 3 hours and have a great run, we don't end up with the same inventory. We have different sets of kit. We've made choices about what kind of thing we want to specialise in and what items we prefer, and there's more variance in what we happen to find in our runs, and our kits end up different. Right now, I think if you both play a lot of missions, you eventually kind of get one of the best kind of everything. I mean, eventually. Guy sent me a screenshot of his loadout where it was just self-charging swapper, self-charging visitor, self-charging this max tier everything. And it was cool that he'd done that, and I was impressed, but I also thought, shit, I should make sure that not everyone ends up this way. Like, it shouldn't just be a matter of grinding until you get all the things. It should be more of a decision. I might leave that one till last, because it feels like there's certain parts of it I'm very sure of, and there are other parts of it where I still feel like there might be one extra component to this that I could add on that would really change it. But, maybe by the time I get to it, I'll be so desperate to finish that I will do the simplest version possible, and often that just works out great anyway. So yeah, I think those are all the big things to do. I'm trying to kind of race through these and do them in a somewhat prototypey fashion. A lot of this doesn't have art, and I just want to get it in there and see if it works. And then, because once all these things are done, and I've done one pass on sound design, then it really is just like another big test, bug fixing, polishing, Steam achievements, some dialogue needs writing, and just fixing things up and making sure it hangs together and responding to feedback and stuff, which is no small task, and so that's why I'm eager to get to the point where that is the task that's left. But the upside is that this stuff that I'm doing now is really fun. It's proper game design, it's having ideas, trying them out, seeing if they work, and moving on in a very quick cycle. I did those 6 guard types in I think 2 days, and that's really satisfying. So yeah, it's cool.